guys, it's me Rebecca. So I'm here today to do my April wrap-up as well as discuss a couple books I plan to read in May so far. And I am currently reading one book. It is April 30th, but I'm about halfway through, so my thoughts will be in my May wrap-up, but I'm still gonna discuss it at the end of the video. So yeah, let's get started with the first book I read and finished in April, which was There by Tommy Orange. And this follows 12 characters from native communities, all traveling to the big Oakland powwow, all connected to one another in ways they may not realize. Among them is Jackie Redfeather, newly sober and trying to make it back to the family she left behind. Dean Oxenden, pulling his life together after his uncle's death and working at the powwow to honor his memory. 14-year-old Orville, coming to perform traditional dance for the first time. Together, this chorus of voices tells of the plight of the urban Native American, grappling with a complex and painful history with an inheritance of beauty, spirituality, with communion, and sacrifice and heroism. Yeah, we do follow these 12 characters. And the novel kind of bounces around between all of these different characters, all of these different narratives, because they're not only native, I guess. Like, they might be partial native, or they might have a white parent and a native parent. They just don't feel like connected to their culture as well. Some of them just don't really have experience in their culture, either because they've never, I guess, been a part of it, and it's never really, aspects have never really been introduced, and we see that they are going through the powwow for different reasons, and we see this big event at the powwow that gets out of control. And yeah, I found this quite easy to follow. I didn't get lost on which narrative I was in and whatnot, and I did like how it's different stories from people of the same cultural background and trying to find acceptance in themselves of their culture, and how they tell their stories and how they're coming together and how they continue coming together even after this event occurs at the powwow. And overall I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4. And the next book I was able to read and finish in April was Piglet by Lottie Hazel. This is about this woman named Piglet who's rather pleased with how her life's turned out so far. An up-and-coming cookbook editor at a London publishing house, she's got lovely loyal friends and a handsome fiancé Kit whose verified family she actually most of the time likes, despite their upper-class eccentricities. One of the many things Kit loves about Piglet is the delicious, unfamiliarly elaborate meals she's always cooking. But when Kit confesses a horrible betrayal 2 weeks before they're set to be married, Piglet finds herself suddenly hungry. The couple decides to move forward with the wedding as planned, but as it nears and Piglet balances family expectations, pressure at work, and her quest to make the perfect cake, she finds herself increasingly unsettled, behaving in ways even she can't explain. Torn between a life she's always wanted and the waviness that comes with not getting what you know you deserve, Piglet is, by the day of her wedding, a mess, but also ready to look beyond the lies we sometimes tell ourselves to get by. And I should say that if you're going into this novel, look into trigger warnings, because there's a couple eating disorders talked about. It seems like Piglet's sister has some sort of eating disorder, maybe anorexia, I'm not sure. But Piglet herself, it seems like she herself has an eating disorder, and it seems like she binges to deal with the stresses and whatnot. And I mean, this isn't really a spoiler, this is just me being messed up in the head, but I was kind of disappointed of this novel, and not disappointed, but I was expecting this novel to take a different route than it did. It went a bit more realistic route than I was expecting, and I don't know if this synopsis I was expecting, I don't know, but something a bit more cannibalistic. I don't know why, but yeah. But this is quite a moving novel. How we follow this girl she'll do anything to make this fantasy dream life, where she has the money, her dream career, a perfect husband, a house, into a reality, and how she is willing to ignore this betrayal to achieve it, and as well how she doesn't want to be like her family. She in a way is like ashamed of her parents, in a sense, like her father is always counting money, making sure like, and he's always like worried about like how much something costs, or he thinks something costs a bit more expensive and whatnot, and how she continues being in this fantasy after learning the truth, and how she's molded herself to be a certain way in order to achieve this particular future. Like she's let other people's desires get in her way, and she also hates the fact that she and her friends, they're in like different phases of in life. Like her best friend is pregnant and expecting her first child, and Piglet is worried about like how that will affect their friendship, and the fact like they are in different periods of life, and she's just worried about being left behind. And I also have to say that I don't know, I feel like this should also be another thing you should be aware of, that she's constantly comparing her body to others, like how big she is compared to her sister who's so small and delicate, or how she can't relate to her pregnant best friend who's nearing the end of her pregnancy because she doesn't have the belly. Like she is not really satisfied where she is in life, and she uses food to like kind of replace everything. But yeah, we see how eventually she decides like, no, enough's enough, that she's gonna make the life she knows she deserves, a more, I guess, realistic life where she is actually happy, where she's not constantly stressed, where she doesn't have to escape into her fantasy in order to be happy. Because there's a couple of times where she dreams of being this renowned critic, reviewer of restaurants, where she'll go to these fancy restaurants during her lunch break and sit there pretending she's a reviewer, and that's what she wants, instead of this being in this like a position where she's just an editor. I think she just dreams more, and yeah. I don't know, overall I enjoyed that one, and I gave it 4 stars. And the next book I was able to finish in April was Biography of X by Catherine Lacey. And this is about when X, an iconistic artist, writer, and polarizing shapeshifter, falls dead in her office, her widow, CM, wild with grief and refusing everyone's good advice, hurls herself into writing a biography of the women she defied. Not even CM knows where X was born, and in her quest to find out, she opens a Pandora's box of secrets, betrayals, and destruction, settling her off on an adventure quest in America, struggling to reintegrate the Southern Territory, a fascist theocracy that split from the west of the country after the Second World War. When she finally understands the scope of X's defining artistic project, Siam realizes her wife's deceptions were far crueler than she imagined. And with this, we see how she is trying to really learn more about her wife's past, like collect her life story. And CM is only really doing this after an unauthorized biography was written, where she feels like the writer got a lot of things wrong, but people ate up the novel because Axe was quite elusive. Like she didn't really reveal anything about herself, about her past. And throughout this novel, we do learn about the Southern Territory and what would happen if it was revealed where she came from, and it would reveal what was revealed. Like, if it was learned that she escaped there. and how different the U.S. is in this novel compared to, I guess, life. And I did find that quite interesting, and we and we really get the story of acts from other people, like their accounts or stories of her. We really see Axe's story through her own perspective, through her own journals which she kept. Like, it's this really seeing how she is using this project as a way to kind of keep her grief going, so she has something that connects her with Axe, that she'll be able to, in a way, keep Axe alive in some way. So, yeah, we also see how CM and Axe's relationship might not have been the healthiest, with CM thinking Axe probably had her best intentions at heart, but it seems like Axe was just trying to make her a housewife who stayed home all day, and yeah. And yeah, overall I did enjoy this, and I gave it 4 stars. And the next book I was able to finish was Webble Witch by Kirsten Cicerelli. And this is the sequel to Heartless Hunter or The Crimson Moth, depending on where you're from. And I'm just going to give the synopsis to Heartless Hunter. Heartless Hunter follows a witch who is looking for a witch to save, and a witch hunter who is looking for her to capture her, because Woon, who is the witch, she saves other witches who've been arrested by the government. In this society, if you're caught being a witch or being a witch sympathizer, there are consequences. If you're a witch, there's something called the purge, where you're just essentially killed. And Gideon, who is the witch hunter, he's part of this Black Blood Guard who they arrest witches, and he is on the hunt for her because so many witches have escaped because she saved them. And she courts him to get information where a witch has been taken, and he courts her thinking that she is a witch. She is the witch, or trying to get information on a crimson moth, and we see really the complexities of that. We also learn more of Gideon's history with witches, especially these witch queens, which, because the witch queens, they got too much power, it started a revolution, and we see why Gideon hates witches. And with this sequel, we follow them like 2-3 months after the events of the previous book, and we see how they have to work together to solve an issue, and they don't trust each other in any sense, but they kind of have to learn to build this kind of like somewhat trust in order to help each other out. Like, they're both still aware of their feelings for the other person when they're in close proximity. Oh my word, proximity. I cannot say that word, I don't know why. And they just try to push these feelings down. And my one gripe with this book is they don't know how to communicate. Like, there's no miscommunication. It's like they just don't communicate. Like, something happens, or they see something, or they learn something about the other person, and they just make assumptions and take action based on those assumptions without talking to that other person, and that frustrated me so much. Yeah. And this is quite, I don't know, it's mainly women's heavy, I would say, this one. And definitely less plot. Yeah. But, I don't know, overall I just had a fun time with this, and I gave it 4 stars. And the next book I was able to finish in April was Carmela by Joseph Sheridan Lefebvre. And this is about isolated in a remote mansion in a Central European forest. Laura longs for companionship until a carriage accident brings another young woman into her life, a secretive and sometimes erratic Carmela. As Carmela's actions become more puzzling and vital, Laura develops bizarre symptoms, and as her health goes into decline, Laura and her father discover something monstrous. And yeah, we really see how Laura, she's just lonely. It's just her father. I mean, there are servants, there's her governess, and her, not tutor, but, oh god, what is it, like, the person who makes her clothes, she's close with. And she desires companionship. Like, her father was gonna have a general friend of his come along, and the general was supposed to bring his niece, and then niece ends up dying, and then Carmela comes along, and we see how Carmela and Laura, they get close extremely quickly. Like, this is quite a short novella, and there are images, but they just seem to be getting close quite quickly, and Carmela's moods like kind of go around, and there are strange happenings in the house, like Laura getting these strange dreams, and then her house falls apart, and then we learn from the general that his niece experienced something similar, that there was also this girl in the house, and we just learn really more about Carmela and her woe and all of this, and yeah, overall I enjoyed this and I gave it 4. Now, the last book I was able to finish in April, and I'm dreading holding this up because it's quite heavy, is The Illuminaries by Eleanor Catton. And this takes place in 1866, and Walter Moody has come to stake his claim in New Zealand's gold rush. On the stormy night of his arrival, he stumbles across a tense gathering of 12 local men who have met in secret to discuss a series of unexplained events. A wealthy man has vanished, a prostitute has tried to end her life, and an enormous caching of gold has been discovered in the home of a luckless drunk. Moody is soon drawn into a network of fate's fortunes that is as complex and exquisitely ornate as the night sky. And yeah, and with this one, it's like we see how people had taken actions really due to people worrying about their reputation, and really what I liked about this novel the most is that people came from England, from Australia, and came to New Zealand really in search of something and to start a new life, and either they stayed because they were able to find that something, or they weren't able to afford the passage home or something. And yeah, with the first half of this novel, it's really like recounting the day that led up to this meeting, of all of the interactions that took place that led up to it, and then after the meeting it's the aftermath of answers coming into light, and yeah, answers really being found out, and really people being prosecuted before we get more backstory. So I did definitely enjoy the people trying to find themselves and find their place in this country, and yeah, overall I did like this, even if it did take me a while to get into it, and I gave it 4 stars. Now, that is everything I was able to finish in April, and what I'm currently reading. Again, it is the 30th, and I'm only halfway through this book, but I'm currently reading Black River Orchard by Chuck Wendig. And this takes place in this town called Harrow, where there's something besides the season is changing there. In that town there is an orchard, and in that orchard 7 most unusual trees. And from those trees grows a new sort of apple, strange, beautiful, with skin so wet it's nearly black. Take a bite of one of these apples and you will desire only to devour another, and another. You will become stronger, more vital, more yourself, you will believe. But then your appetite for the apples and their particular gifts will keep growing and become darker. This is what happens when the townsfolk discover the secret of the orchard. Soon it seems that everyone is consumed by an obsession with the magic of the apples. And what's the harm if it is making them all happier, more confident, more powerful, even if something else is buried in the orchard besides the seeds of these extraordinary trees? A bloody history whose roots reach back to the very origins of the town. But now that leaves are falling, the days grow darker, it's harvest time, and the town will soon reap what it's sown. And so far I am liking this. I do like seeing how these apples have an effect on people, how people seem to really feel drawn to them, how they hunger for them. And it's amazing the way they lust for these apples, and they look at people who've never eaten these apples like as weirdos, like they don't understand, sort of thing. And yeah, I'm definitely enjoying that and seeing really like how apple trees were in a way used to colonize the land by Europeans, like how they would plant orchards to take land from natives and whatnot. And so far I'm very much enjoying it. And after I finish that, I do plan to read The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. And this is about in Darantana's grandest mansion, an imperial officer lies dead, killed to all appearances when a tree erupted from his body. Even here at the empire's borders, where conjurings abound in the blood of the Livians, work strange, magical changes. It's a death both terrifying and impossible. Assigned to investigate is Anna Doraba, a detective whose reputation for brilliance is matched only by her eccentricities. Rumor has it that she always wears a blindfold and can solve impossible cases without stepping outside the walls of her home. At her side is her new assistant, Dino's Cole, magically altered in ways that make him the perfect aid to Anna's brilliance. Din is at turn scandalized, perplexed, and infuriated by his new superior. But as the two close in on a mastermind and Anna makes one startling deduction after the next, he realizes she is indeed the Empire's greatest detective and wonders how long he can keep his own secrets safe from her piercing intellect. I'm very much intrigued about this one. But yeah, that's all I read in April and what I'm currently reading and what I plan to read in May so far. Everything else I plan to read in May will be in my May wrap-up. And yeah, I think that's all for this video, so if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below telling me what you've been reading recently. If you want to, please subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on any social media, then all those links are in the down bar below. I'll see you guys next time I post a video.